everyone, it's Chari here. Today we're going to be making some Into the Woods bookmarks like the make and takes that we made at CHA this summer. I'm going to be using Into the Woods set with the new matching dies and the Woodgrain Backdrop set as well. So first I'm going to start by cutting down my craft colored cardstock. This is Nina Desert Storm craft cardstock and it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet. And I'm going to start by cutting it in half. So I'm going to cut it at 5.5. And this is probably the best way to get the most out of a sheet of cardstock if you're going to be making multiple of these particular bookmarks. And then I'm going to cut it at 2 inches wide. So overall it's 2 inches by 5.5 inches. Next I'm going to cut down the pattern paper. It's going to be the back part of it. I'm using a 12 by 12 sheet because it's a double-sided pattern paper, and that way the back part of my bookmarks will have a pattern as well. So again, if you're going to be making multiple of these, just cut your paper all the way down the center at 6 inches, cut it right in half. But I'm only going to be making this one right now, so to keep my paper more intact, I'm just going to cut it down 2 inches, and then I'm going to cut it 6 inches down into the paper and just cut that corner right out. So right like that. So you can see that the back side of my pattern paper is going to have these cute little clouds. And I'm going to use a chevron piece for the front that's layered with the craft. So next I have my Woodgrain Backdrops stamp, and I'm going to mount it on my Flickr stamp press. And I'm going to ink it up with the Memento Rich Cocoa ink. So I'm making sure I ink it up really well. Now this particular stamp, this backdrop, all backdrops are wider than a standard size card, so it's wider than 5.5. But this particular one is wider than the rest, thickness wise, so it's going to cover the whole bookmark. I'm not going to have to line it up and re-stamp it again to cover it. Now you're going to see when I pop this up here that I didn't do a very good job at stamping. I didn't get the right side stamped with good pressure. But the beauty of this is there is a back side. So I've inked up my wood grain again. I'm going to line it back up again, and this time I'm going to make sure I get good pressure all around. It was just me not paying attention to what I was doing the first time. But it's actually going to work out really nicely because when I layer that piece of pattern paper to cover up that mistake, that little piece that hangs off on the back is actually going to have a little wood grain on it, which is kind of nice. So next I'm going to stamp the little acorn from the set. I'm going to stamp it a couple times, which you would do if you're going to be making multiple bookmarks, but I'll probably only color one. This was just so I had some extras in case I messed up my coloring. And I'm stamping it in the brown just to kind of keep the brown theme going rather than introducing a black ink in. And I picked out some Memento colors. I have Teal'Zeel, Tangelo, Morocco, and Bamboo Leaves that I felt kind of went with the colors in the Into the Woods paper. And I decided to go with the bold Teal'Zeel color to stamp my little smile word bubble here. So I'm inking it up really well. And I'm going to stamp it out, and it's going to be a little splotchy, which normally I would not care about and just kind of roll with it. But I remembered that I actually have the Teal'Zeel Memento pigment ink that's the same color. So I decided to kind of compare here and stamp it out with that pigment ink to see what the difference was. Making sure I get it really inked up well. And when I stamped it out, it was nice and smooth, so that's the one I end up using. So now I'm just going to speed up the video and do some Copic coloring, some pretty simple Copic coloring. I'm using the E70 series of browns here and just kind of shading the edges, leaving it lighter in the center. I colored the top all over and thought that wasn't dark enough, contrast with the bottom, so I colored it all over again. And then I'm going in with some darker ones, and I'm coloring in the little scallops of his cap there. The acorn cap. And then I'm going to use the new Into the Woods dies to cut out my images here. You can see I haven't used these yet, so I'm breaking them off. And you just line them up, hold them down with a little washi tape. I'm having to break them off there. That one was giving me a little bit of a hard time. I'll probably go back later and cut off those little nubs that stick out because they can be kind of sharp. Just use some wire cutters and they work pretty well. So I ran it through my Cuttlebug there, and I popped out my little pieces. So it's super simple to cut things out with dies like this. Alright, so now I'm speeding this up again, and I'm using those colored inks that I picked out, and I'm taking the arrow from the set, and I'm just stamping it around and decorating my bookmark. So I'm using that Morocco, the bamboo leaves, and the Tangelo, I believe it is. And I decided not to use the teal teal since my word bubble was that color. I kind of wanted to keep that a focus point and not distract from it. So I just stuck with these 3 colors with my arrows, and I'm just stamping those around randomly, decorating this wood grain piece. And I didn't glue my pieces down so I could move them around as I stamped, but I laid them there so I knew where they'd be. And now I'm going to glue those down. And then I'm going to add some adhesive to the back of that wood grain piece. I made sure I didn't put it on the edge that's going to hang off. And there's my 2 pieces layered together. Now to do the top, I just have a piece of the Hot Cocoa Lawn Trimmings twine. And I'm just going to use a standard hole punch and punch a hole. I'm going to punch it down low so it goes through both those pieces of paper. A little more sturdy that way. And I'm going to tie a knot in the end of my twine here. Just like that. And then I'm going to thread it through the back, and then loop it back through itself. Just like that. So that's a pretty simple bookmark top. But there's a couple variations you can do. You can put the piece of pattern paper on either side of the wood grain piece. You can round the corners. I've done that in a couple of these. And we actually die cut some of the leaves from the Stitch Leaves set with the pattern paper and punched a smaller hole through them and kind of made that, instead of a tassel, a little leaf. So there's lots of options and things you can do. I think it's a super fun project. And I decided my acorn needed a little bit more, so I went back with the cinnamon stickles and just kind of gave him some little highlights on there too. There's today's project. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.